Hey everyone, welcome back to Guitars, Whiskey, and Golf. Today I've got a special bottle for you all, the Henry McKenna 10-year-old bottled in bond. So, you know, this is an interesting bottle. Pre 2017, Henry McKenna 10-year-old bottled in bond was a readily available whiskey for about 30 bucks, by the way. Then it won huge awards back to back around 2019. And then ultimately won Best in Show at the 2019 San Francisco Spirits Competition, which is one of the largest spirits competition, if not the largest, in the United States. So in 2019, it wins Best in Show, Best Whiskey, essentially in the world, at the 2019 San Francisco Spirits Convention. And a guy named Fred Minnick, who's very well known in the bourbon industry in terms of tasting and evaluating great spirits, rated it, one of the great whiskeys of the year. If I think he probably called it his whiskey of the year on his channel. So effectively, in 2019, this bottle became a unicorn and became almost impossible to find. In my area in Colorado, I could not find it. I heard about it, was interested in it, went to liquor stores, chased it, couldn't find it. And that continued through 2020, 2021. It really became, a unicorn bottle. I never saw it in any liquor stores in my area. And so, like I said, in 2016, 2017, this was a readily available bottle for like 30 bucks. And due to its wins at the San Francisco Spirits Competition and the evaluations that it received from people in the industry, this bottle exploded in popularity and became a unicorn, became impossible to find. And I finally landed one at my local liquor store. Had to pay 80 bucks for it. So the price has essentially, and by the way, this bottle was going for as much as 120 bucks, I would say, about a year ago. And then I've started to notice, seeing it online a little bit more and saw the price beginning to come down. So I think some of the intense fervor over Henry McKenna 10-year-old bottled in bond is dying down, thankfully. And the price is beginning to maybe come back to some sort of reasonable normalcy. Personally, this bottle should be about 50 bucks. But you cannot get age stated whiskey that much anymore. The demand for bourbon and rye is at such a level that most distilleries are in the process of doubling their production. But the problem is whiskey takes years to age. So a distillery could double their production today, and if it is an age stated product, like say a 10-year, that additional production, you're not going to see it for 10 years. So it's a conundrum for the whiskey industry, and I understand that. But some of the insanity that has crept into the bourbon world really is out of control. But be that as it may, I did finally land this bottle, somewhat of a unicorn. I think I overpaid for it. Like I said, I paid about 80 bucks for it. So, what are the roots of Henry McKenna? So Henry McKenna migrated or immigrated from Ireland in 1837 and settled in Kentucky and began making bourbon to his family's recipe around that time. And believe it or not, a lot of the people that you see, a lot of the names that you see on bottles, if you don't already know this, are actually real people, whether it's Elijah Craig or Henry McKenna, what have you. These are all real people that immigrated to the United States pre-Civil War and began making spirits. and are really the founding fathers of the bourbon world in Kentucky. So Henry McKenna, like I said, came from Ireland in 1837, settled there with his family, began making bourbon. And so let's get into this bourbon and let's talk about, is this bourbon worth the hunt? Is it deserving of being called a unicorn? Is it worth paying $80 for? So let's get into it. So what is Henry McKenna? First of all, like I said, it's aged 10 years. These days, that's quite the age statement. The mash bill is pretty traditional. It's 78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. Very, very traditional mash bill. And let's get into the nosing a little bit. By the way, again, this is bottled in bond. So it is bottled at 100 proof. And this is also, by the way, a single barrel, which I love. I love the concept of single barrels because then you know the whiskey you're tasting is not a blend of 100 different barrels. It's what came out of that one barrel. And it really gives you a better idea of truly what the character and nature of that spirit is. You get vanilla for days. So it's very vanilla. There's almost like a shortbread aspect to it. Orange zest, cinnamon, nutmeg, oak, but very pleasing, not overly oaked at all. Considering it's been barreled for 10 years, the oak is pretty muted. So I would say it has a lot of vanilla. It has like a shortbread aspect to it. Orange zest, cinnamon, nutmeg. Really very, very traditional bourbon notes there. Let's get into the palate a little bit. Super traditional bourbon. Honestly, it's not overly complex. It's a little peppery at first. You get a lot of nice oak, but not overly oaked, and it's not bitter or drying at all. A lot of times when something gets overly oaked, it becomes very drying on the palate, very bitter. Not the case with this. Get a little brown sugar. So I would say, it's not an overly complex bourbon, to be honest with you, um, but very good. So, is this a good bourbon at $30, 2017 prices? Yeah, killer bourbon at that price. But we're in today's world, and you're not going to get it for that price. To me, this is an everyday easy sipper all day long. It's got a very pleasing nose, a lot of vanilla. The palate is super smooth. You get a tiny Kentucky hug. At 100 proof, you're not getting a huge one, but I got a little Kentucky hug. Little spiciness on the palate, but not overly spicy. A little brown sugar, not overly sweet though, and a little oak. So it's just a very, very nice, pleasing bourbon. So the question then becomes, is this worth the chase? Is it worth the price you're going to pay right now? I think you'd probably be hard pressed to find this for, say, less than $80. You might be able to find it for 70, but you might see it at close to 90 as well. Just depends on the availability in your area. Like I said, I paid 80, and I never see Henry McKenna in my area. So I figured, you know what? I never see this. It's a chance to grab a bottle, and I'll go for it. And so I bought it. So what do I think of it, really, at the end of the day? This is a really, really good bourbon. Is it worth $80? In my opinion, no, it's not. This is a fine bourbon, well made, nicely aged, beautifully balanced bourbon. It really has a lot of the flavors that you want in a bourbon and the experience, which is like an easy sipping, sweet, beautiful spirit. But is it worth $80? No, it's not. But what is value? It's really down to the consumer and what you value and what it's worth to you. I ended up getting it because, the theme of my channel tends to be I'm a working guy. I have a working man's bourbon collection. I don't chase unicorns. I don't pay $300 for bottles of bourbon or anything like that. But when I saw it on the shelf, I was like, you know what? Let me grab that one and I'll pay the $80 for it. So, because it's so rare in my area, and I literally, in 3 years of looking, have never seen it, it was worth it to me to pick up a bottle of Henry McKenna at $80 and experience it. But is it truly worth the $80? I would say no. It's just a very, very nice bourbon. If you could get this in your area for $50, I'd say jump on it all day long. If you see it in your area and it's really anything over 70 to $80, I would just pass on it. It's just a nice, well balanced, easy sipping bourbon, but it's not overly complex and it's not a mind blowing dram. So, hope that helps you with your bourbon journey and what to spend your money on. Thanks for tuning in to Guitars, Whiskey, and Golf. And please like and subscribe if you like the content and enjoy good whiskey, golf, and guitar playing. Talk to you later. Bye.